Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Laura Bolio and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Holistiplan. I have the pleasure today to introduce to you my two good friends from CapSouth Wealth Management, which is a leader in financial planning. I have Jennifer Fensley here today. She is a wealth advisor and personal wealth director at CapSouth. And we also have Allison Doty, who is an associate advisor at CapSouth. And today, what are we talking about today? Something pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about our blueprint for client engagement. It's a really long title that goes on after that, but basically, it's when we do it and why we do it. So, not as much of the ins and outs of the how, but don't worry, we've got lots of things to send you if you want them afterwards.
Yes, this is going to be awesome. This is a topic that comes up time and time again. It's really about simplifying your service calendar and doing it in a way that's approachable for advisors just kind of dipping their toe in the water, or if you want to start scaling up what you're doing right now. So before we dive into it, yes, this webinar will be recorded. Yes, we will send out the slides afterwards. If you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A and we will, the three of us will do our best to answer them as they come up. And then if there's any that we don't get to at the end, we will send out a recap email answering your questions. So if we're ready to kick it off, we can go ahead and kick it off.
Give me just 1 minute. Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
All right. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, it's
looks
perfect.
good.
So we are
Awesome.
going to tag team a little bit today. If you see us looking down, it's because we're jumping in the chat when we're not talking. So I wanted to just kind of build off of that introduction from Laura. My title as a wealth advisor just means I have my own group of clients, and then I'm also overseeing really all of our client service teams. And so for us, Allison works directly with me. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we scaled. I'll speak a lot more to strategy, and Allison will get into the weeds of like how, what, why. She has been our Holistiplan champion for us. It's awesome. And I love that for just her development and what she's been able to bring to us and all of our growth. So an evolution. Laura talked about scaling up. And the key thing that I wanted to share with you guys is how much we have benefited from webinars like this. Most of what you see today should not be really different if you've participated in master classes before. Some of the things that we've taken were key learnings there. I'll show you the full picture. I'll try to jump in and talk about like how we did that from an evolution step, how we scaled. I have some housekeeping because I know we generally get asked these questions. So first, our tech stack. We use Salesforce as our CRM. We use MoneyGuide Pro as our planning software, Holistiplan for all things tax and insurance. And then we use a couple of different tools that are specialty. And we too, as a company, are evolving. We are an independent RIA. We have plans to stay independent. So we are currently primarily founder owned, and we are transitioning to the second generation of leadership owned. And one of the things that I really want to say to everybody here is just if you are a smaller one person shop or a smaller team, Allison and I started with the company 7.5 years ago. It was just me on my own as part of this larger group that was very siloed. The company's evolved over the last 7 years. So now we're transitioning to Ensemble. Allison joined my team directly. So then it was a 2-woman show 4.5 years ago. We started. So a lot of what you're going to see today, you can do by yourself or you can do with a small group of people. Our direct team is myself, Allison, and Michael Holt, who's our client service associate. So there's really just 3 of us executing what you're going to see today. So don't worry if you're not a large firm. This is very scalable. And one of the best things is we were given just as advice was what is safe to try. So if you take anything away today, like keep that in mind, what is safe to try. So service calendar, service cadence. Again, the evolution of what you're going to see, we didn't start here. So from us, we really started years ago with Holistiplan. It was one person using that tool. And then slowly throughout the company, because we're probably not the best or haven't been the best at communicating what we're doing across the board, we're trying to change that. we slowly started learning. So then about 2.5 years ago, we started participating more and more in Holistiplan webinars. Allison and I directly participated in the Debbie Taylor Holistiplan Masterclass, and that was a game changer for us. Prior to some of the changes that we have made in the last 2 years, we really did a traditional meeting. I call them pump and dump. We build all this information and just throw it at the client. We knew that wasn't working great for us. So we really wanted to be intentional and increase touches for the client throughout the year. We wanted to make sure that we were doing all this work for the client that they didn't know that we were probably doing for them because we weren't telling them. And we wanted to be able to be efficient and effective both for employees and for clients. And so batching the client work with how we were utilizing the Holistiplan tools started to make a lot of sense for us. And then I don't know if you guys feel this way, but one of the biggest things that we have noticed as a team is we do not like being reactive. It gives us that feeling of like, ugh, versus like, oh, okay, we got ahead of it. We're ready to go. So we have been looking at how do we slowly incorporate more of the Holistiplan tools? Where do we do this? And why do we do it that way? So that we could be proactive and be less reactive and have less of that feeling. So we're going to call this a seasonal cadence. You can call it calendar. I'm sure this looks familiar to some of you when this is just what we're doing with Holistiplan. There is a larger service calendar that Debbie Taylor shared, and we had been in the process years ago looking for how do we start standardizing things as a team. Well, a lot of those calendars cadences are monthly. We tried that. It didn't go so well. We felt like we were boxed in. We were feeling like, well, what if we don't get it done in that month? Is it a failure? Do we adjust? What does that look like? So when we saw hers, we really started going like, okay, seasons feel like we can breathe again. It feels like it can communicate the right things externally and internally. You don't have to worry about what's on the slide. We're going to dive into each of these seasons, and Allison's going to really take you behind the scenes of how we do it. And again, our approach, what you see here today, is what we are doing throughout the year utilizing Holistiplan, but we did not start here. We started with small test and learn scenarios with one item that we then may build upon. And so again, find that one thing from today that you could just do as a test and learn.
So for us, this is kind of where we started. We actually sat in the Debbie Taylor master classes, and she showed us a tax, or it was really her client service calendar, and it was really her announcements calendar. And so we took that and really adopted it into our own kind of system. So over the years, we found that we were receiving a lot of different client emails, questions like, hey, where do I pull my tax documents from maybe newer clients, or questions like, when will my tax documents be ready? So this year we were trying to be very proactive, giving client as much information as possible. So we created this communications calendar. And so in the right-hand column, you can kind of see here, I'll direct you to it. You can see that we've got specific dates for when we're reaching out to clients about specific topics. We're really pairing those dates with our, we use Constant Contact. It's our batch email system. So we're able to kind of pre-populate all of our client list and then pre-populate that email template, and we can send it out. And so that goes out to everyone. And then, like Jennifer mentioned, we're not trying to put ourselves in a box. So for those kind of bigger projects, we've got specific months that we're looking at things. So maybe for our tax return reviews, we're not trying to do that in a day. So we've got it in 2 separate months that we're really looking at it. And all of these dates is really just goals for us. We're trying to stay on top of things and making sure we're reaching those goals.
Winter for us is a slower season. Winter for us probably means like December, January, February. It can mean whatever you want it to mean to you. But the reason that it tends to be slower for us is because we batch a lot of our client meetings into spring. The tax prep letter is something that we are doing and getting ready for all year long. Allison's going to tell you why. But I will tell you a real life scenario that we went through. And I believe it was probably the end of 2022, we really started to understand okay, what is this tax prep letter? How could it be used? So as a team, I said, well, I'll try this. I'll try to build a couple of these. I'll pick 2 of our high net worth clients. Let me see how long it takes. Let me see how intensive it would be. We can figure this out. So you guys might have a great tracking mechanism for all of your taxable events. At the time, we didn't. We were utilizing a bunch of different systems. We had Charles Schwab that we were tracking things. We had spreadsheets that we were tracking things. So I built, basically looking back, it would have been in January of 2023, looking back for tax year 2022. We were scouring all the systems, trying to build this out. I did too. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're not doing that this year. But we did decide by working together that it was going to be really easy for us to put some processes in place. And we love the idea of being able to offer this. We would just wait until January of this year to start offering that. And Allison's going to tell you how.
Yeah. So last year we really started January 2023, and we started adding in every time there was a taxable event for a specific client subset that we used, we would add in the taxable event. We segmented out which clients were going to receive this tax prep letter. We did not want to start big and give it to all of our clients. We started very small with maybe clients that had very or complicated tax situations. And so that's who initially received this tax prep letter. We provide kind of 2 different versions. So there's the client version and the CPA version. We are providing those to the subset of clients. Those clients receive both versions, but if we have a direct relationship with their CPA, we're going to send the CPA that specific CPA version. So you can see just a quick illustration on the screen. There's those 2 different versions. So the client version is on the top and the CPA version is on the bottom. This is not the whole tax prep letter. This is really just a little snippet so you can see an illustration of the differences. So the client version is meant to be a lot more educational. It's meant to really just educate the client, talk about what exactly happened in the year. And then the CPA version is very condensed. CPAs know what Roth conversions are. They know what maybe donating to a charitable fund is. They know all these things. So they really don't need that extensive information.
Yeah. If you haven't seen this, you can find these in Holistiplan. They're great webinars about how to use it. And so now I'm just looking at the chat and answering your question. We are building this. We started tracking things on a Word document just in 2022, 2023. And then now we have a process. We do our workflows that, based on the role and responsibility of the team member, we're going directly in and entering that information throughout the year in the Holistiplan tax letter. And so it's just a rolling document. It's a really great place. And then our process is that we're building that all year long for all these events. We kind of just make it a part of our overall processes. And then at the end of the year, so let's say we get to the end of 2024, Allison will take the initiative in January, starting really in December of this year into January of 2025. She'll start reviewing over those. And then it's my responsibility to put final eyes on that before we send these letters out. And so again, if we have a direct relationship with the CPA, we're going to send the CPA version to the CPA. If we don't have a direct relationship with the CPA, we're going to provide the client with both versions of that list.
Yeah. And another great thing to add here is too, Jennifer mentioned, we have a client service associate. We have trained him. He's really managing all of the operational paperwork, different processes. So he's really been educated on different taxable events that could solicit maybe something in the tax prep letter. So for example, like a non-deductible IRA, a backdoor Roth contribution, he knows as soon as that's processed, he's going to go add that to the tax prep letter. So it's really kind of everyone on board adding it to that prep letter. There we go.
Yeah. So for us, we know anytime we're going to send stuff to clients, we're going to get questions if it's new, like, what is this? So we generally put our heads together and we start asking, like, what would people ask? What is this going to be? So we really are going to try to make it a situation where we're not going to capture all of them, but as a team, we would try to put ourselves in the client's shoes and think about what they may ask.
Yeah. And so specifically for our tax prep letter email, we've added that frequently asked questions section. You can see there's a lot more questions that we didn't include. It was too much to keep on this kind of slide. And so we were just trying to get ahead of all those questions. And so just to explain for our team, what we do is we kind of start the letter off with Michael. He's our client service associate. Again, he's communicating a lot on operational processes to clients. So he starts our email, our draft email, and then it gets sent to me in a Word document. I'm going through, looking at it, and kind of making my edits. And then it ends with Jennifer. She is our team's discerner. If you like the 6 Working Geniuses, she is discernment. And so she's going through and really discerning, editing, making adjustments, however is needed. So that's typically our flow with any kind of email template. And we like to use a lot of templates.
So initial scenario analysis. If you are a heavy Holistiplan user, you know what we're talking about when we are talking about scenario analysis. I've seen in the chat, there's been some questions, like some of you are new to Holistiplan. This is not something that Allison and I started with. I will say that the person that brought Holistiplan to our company, back then we were siloed. So we had separate teams and we didn't really work together much. He is now our advanced planning director. He's fabulous. He ran his own team, but he also had a very successful CPA business. So for him, he found Holistiplan and he would dive into the scenarios. This took a little bit longer for us to get comfortable with, but it's very intuitive to use. I will say that the Holistiplan team is phenomenal in the trainings that they offer, whether you're reaching out to them and asking questions. So if you are new to Holistiplan, don't let this scare you. But for those of you who have been doing this for a while, we like to start with this on the front end. Again, it goes back to being proactive. I like to call this is our roadmap for the year. This is what we think is going to happen. This is what we're trying to plan for, because as Allison will get into, there's all these different types of use cases. And we found that if we're waiting to the last minute to deal with this, or we're building in real time, or we're waiting to the end of the year, just wasn't a good experience for everybody. So we like to get a game plan and we like to start early.
Yeah. So for scenario analysis, it's really a tool we kind of use all year long for maybe random things that come up. But for us, we are specifically primarily using it in winter. So by winter, I mean the very beginning of the year and then in the fall timeframe. So clients will send us things like their pay stubs, or we'll have a conversation about their bonuses in a cash flow meeting, and we'll start our initial projections. So just to give you a few kind of use cases for when we really use it in the very beginning of the year, we have a few retired clients who we can go in and model maybe Roth conversion projections. If we want clients to do maybe a barbell strategy, so that's some in the beginning of the year and then some later in the year. Debbie Taylor does a great masterclass talking about that strategy. So you should go watch it. We also have a few retirees who retired before Medicare age. One of our strategies is to limit the income so that way they can receive some ACA credits. So we have to be very cognizant of their modified adjusted gross income. And we have to really look at IRA distributions, capital gains, all these different taxable things to make sure they're within a specific target. The last two really, so we as CapSouth utilize tax managed portfolios. So we're able to go in and set maybe a target tax budget for a client so they realize a certain amount of gains throughout the year. We have a variety of different portfolios we can use that with. But for certain clients, like maybe those who are in the 2-year look back for Medicare, we're being very cognizant of their modified adjusted gross income. We can really start to adjust that target bill and be very cognizant. So the last one, we have some clients who maybe have restricted stock units that are vesting or are receiving larger bonuses. We can go in and do some initial projections and really kind of monitor and see what their taxable event looks like for the year. And then again, Jennifer mentioned, but we're really truing all this up in the fall timeframe and really making sure it's all in check.
Yeah, and I want to just answer a couple of questions really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to type away, but just kind of blanket cover. So what we're showing you is not our entire service calendar. We're just showing you Holistiplan and what we're doing there today. So I know there's been some questions about meetings. You're going to see what we do in the fall, which is going to be another touch of the meeting. But going back to that increased touches, We have, outside of like our tax and insurance planning, other touch points throughout the year. So it's not just these touches, but today we just really wanted to focus on our Holistiplan uses. So spring for us, as I mentioned, we are doing a lot of our meetings. Like many of you, it's probably a very busy time. We are being asked for tax documents, even though we're trying to get ahead of that with some of the communication. We are talking to CPAs. We're doing spring meetings. So it's a full swing in tax season for us.
So for our tax return process, or tax return request process, excuse me, we really wanted to try to simplify. In previous years, we had been reaching out with individualized messages to different clients, asking them for their return. There was no specific cadence of when we were reaching out. We weren't able to batch those emails. And so it wasn't a kind of put together process. And so our goal for this year was really, we want to simplify and we want to standardize. So with simplification in mind, we started using constant contact and batching client emails. I'm going to get into all of this in action for you. I'm just giving you a little tidbit. And then with standardization in mind, we created a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, so we can really put in, okay, we reached out to this client on this specific date. All of these clients will reach out on that specific date. And then we can put in the date received. This Excel spreadsheet is really segmented out based on our April filers, our standard filers, and then those that file an extension. So I'll kind of put this in action for you. And so Michael is our client service associate. He is our champion of constant contact. So what he does is he populates those that list of clients and their emails that they will receive this specific email. Here's an example of one of our emails we send out. And then I am in charge of making sure that Excel spreadsheet is always up to date. So the first thing I do once I receive that tax return is I go in and I update that Excel spreadsheet. I kind of mark the client.
Oh, I think we lost her with her internet. I'll just jump in.
Put date received. And that way, if we're reaching out to another subset of, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
hey,
so
look.
that
Live event, tech happens. Go ahead.
So that way clients are really receiving, are not getting duplicate client tax return requests. And then kind of the last thing here is if we reach out 4 times to a client, we're adding it to the next agenda to make sure that if we haven't received their tax return yet, we'll make sure we get a copy.
Yeah. And some of the snapshots that you're seeing, if they're not Holistiplan, we'll provide all these materials. Because we feel like, I think one of the biggest things I've noticed in this industry is that it's just such a collaborative effort. So many people have helped us and shared their materials. Like, we're not competitive at all. We're not going to like keep this to ourselves. So we're just showing you snapshots, but we'll be happy to provide these materials to you so that you can see exactly beyond the snapshots what this information is. You can go ahead. Summer for us, we're going to talk about this a little bit, but it's a slower time for us, a little bit from a standpoint of because we've had those spring meetings. And then one of the things before we even started batching meetings and what led to us really starting to try to batch those meetings is clients were tough to get into the summertime. Kids were out of school, rhythms were disrupted. Like, we had tons of vacations. Both the clients are trying to go on vacation, employees are trying to go on vacation. So once we kind of moved to batching meetings and putting some of these rhythms into place, this allowed for us to have a lot more time in summer. Again, whatever you define summer to be best for you guys. But that allowed us to have a lot more time to work on some of the deeper work behind the scenes.
Yeah, and just to second what Jennifer's saying, I mean, this is really the time that we focus on kind of all of the really intense kind of planning work. And then we're also working on big projects. So putting together service calendars, maybe, that's when we're really focusing on that. And so what I do with tax return reviews is I really look at a few things. I look at the tax return, I look at the tax reports, and then we'll talk about that later, and then tax scenario analysis. I also utilize something called Quick Text. It's through our CRM, Salesforce, we utilize that. And so I'll open up a task for a client and say, review client tax return. And within the body of the task, I will be able to click on this emblem. It's a quick text emblem. And then this will be mass added to that text. So anytime I'm reviewing a client's tax return, all of this information is pre-populated. It's super helpful. Last year, I was going in and reviewing clients' tax returns and adding in each of these, typing it all out. And so it was really a labor-intensive process. So this year, our company kind of discovered quick text and really started using that.
Yeah. And just before we move on from this, a couple of questions about workflows. So we use the real deal Salesforce. If you've had experience with it, it can be great, but it can also be cumbersome. We're not a firm large enough to have a Salesforce specialist. We have an amazing COO. She has been with the firm for like 12 years. She's self-taught. She's diving in there, helping us do this. So one of the questions was like, how do you track all of this? So this has been an evolution as well. Like a lot of times we have individual tasks for clients. We can create workflows and sequences within Salesforce and launch that. And then the team this year has really just been amazing at creating the quick text. And if you noticed, Allison mentioned the 6 types of working genius. That book has transformed our team and our company. And so we're learning how to use all of our skill sets together. Sometimes when we attack projects, it is less about titles and who can do what. It's like who thought of a great idea. So we look for great ideas regardless. And Michael, I like to call him our chief chaos coordinator. He is phenomenal with keeping Allison and I wrangled. And so then Allison learned quick text and built this out specifically for her. And now we'll spread that throughout the organization. So again, everything's an evolution, whether it's workflows, you know what doesn't work for you. And then we just try to carve out enough time to work on the business. And it can be difficult to do, but it's also life-giving once you spend time with your people. Even if it's yourself and you just need to go offsite and have a day to think about some things, taking that time and taking the time to build things like quick text can save you so much time and energy down the road.
That's so true. It really has saved a lot of time with tax return reviews. And then one other thing too, so when I'm looking at tax returns, I'm looking at scenario analysis we did in previous years or the previous year, and then the tax return and obviously the tax report as well. So the easiest way in my eyes to catch an error on a tax return, we are not looking for errors. We tell all of our clients, we're not there to look at your drafts. We're not catching errors on purpose. We're not looking for that. But there have been times in the past where we have checked a scenario analysis against a tax return and we've caught errors. So for example, we had a client who needed to pay off a HELOC and we had to end up taking money out of their IRA for it. That's all the, anyway. And so they had larger IRA distributions. They did not report the 1099 to their CPA. And so we had to kind of work with them and true that up. We also had a client who has an inherited IRA. They didn't report that 1099 to their CPA either. And so they had an RMD and they didn't end up reporting that. And then kind of lastly, we had 529 contributions for a client who was in a state where they get those deductions. They had not told their CPA about their 529 contributions. And we were able to kind of catch that on our back end work. And so that's just 3 kind of examples of where scenario analysis and tax return reviews are great.
Yeah. And thanks for hitting that, Allison, because that's some of the questions I'm seeing are really about tax planning versus tax advice. I don't want to get into the long labor of that, but you're definitely well within your right to do tax planning. There's some great resources we'd be happy to share that like explain the differences. Allison and I are not CPAs, even though we have someone on our team within the company that is a CPA. They do not review the tax returns. They are not helping everyone. They are simply now serving in the capacity of an advisor. Now, they're somebody we can go and consult with and ask questions of, but again, we're not preparing tax returns for clients. And there was another great question that was asked, and you somewhat answered it, but I just want to call that for everybody else, it was like, will Holistiplan catch errors? Holistiplan is fabulous about catching missing forms. That happens like repeatedly for certain clients of ours. But the best way that we're able to see some of those things is when we do the scenario analysis, because it jumps off the page. And to
Mhm.
Allison's point, we are very clear in telling clients we're not trying to catch errors. We do not take responsibility from that. It just happens that by utilizing these planning tools and doing a thorough review, there's some things that will just jump off the page at
Mhm.
you. And your clients will adore you for adding that value to them. And we just keep reiterating that message every time we talk about it.
So as mentioned previously, we're really looking at the tax return, the tax report, kind of in unison. So the tax report is really just an incredible summary of the tax return. It provides some key observations at the bottom, and maybe some quick planning ideas that you can implement with your clients. So we send clients their specific tax report around the summer. It gives them enough time after they're done with kind of tax season, enough time to breathe, gives us enough time. We're no longer in that intensive client meeting season. So we like to send the tax report out. I'll show you the kind of an email template that we use. So we send it out in the summer. Everybody's got enough kind of breathing room there. And so all the clients who receive really planning work from us, which is the majority of our clients, will receive the tax report. If we're getting their tax return, we're going to in return send them their tax report. And so, like we've mentioned several times, our goal is always to kind of get ahead of client questions. So our email that accompanies the tax report is very intensive. It's got a lot of information. And so it's walking through all of, you see all these key figures. It's walking through an explanation of each of those. So for our more analytical clients who really like to know all the details, or just our clients who maybe have questions and maybe they've been scared to ask, or they can really kind of direct themselves to the email and follow along with the Holistiplan report. And so it's sent on an individualized basis. We haven't figured out, there's not really a way that you could batch these in constant contact or something, because each client gets their own tax report. And so it all goes out in the summer.
Yeah. Just a little bit about the tax observation and report and how we've tiered clients. Again, we cannot be all things to all people. Uh, we're evolving the business as much as we are evolving our processes and procedures. We would love to, but we've worked really hard to kind of scope our services. And so, as Allison mentioned, the tax report is for everybody that gives us a tax return. There are other ways to get information into Holistiplan that we are looking into right now. And there are ways that we can send that information securely, get it from the CPAs. A lot of questions I've seen are about, like, what happens if the client doesn't give it to you? So one of the things I would always suggest is show the clients a sample deliverable, because when they understand what you are going to do with the information, and we see this across the board, it's not just with tax returns. Like, we're always asking for things and they're like, okay, why do you need this? But when we show them how we're going to use it and what they are going to get from it, we have much higher levels of adoption. So I would think that that's going to be really important for you guys to try if you're not seeing the results that you want. And I know that we're having a lot of questions about, like, what is happening in the CRM versus Holistiplan. So I want to clarify the quick text, because, like, some of you guys are using Right Capital and Wealthbox, and there are different workflows for everyone. For us, we were in the process of Holistiplan is not going to do the quick text information. Allison previously was going in and typing in every single header into what we would call a task for that client. Just by creating the quick text, which populates that task for every single review of the tax return that we are doing, it is different. But let me be clear. Holistiplan is going to generate the tax observation report for everybody. Tons and tons of information from there. Only from a certain level of client. So our high net worth, our ultra high net worth clients, for us, that's going to start at really $1.5 million or a level of planning fee, because we can manage assets for clients, or we can just do planning only. So I would say a planning fee of a minimum of $12,000. Now, again, guys, it's not just for tax. That's like our whole, like what we're doing for everybody. It would take that amount of revenue before Allison is doing that specific quick text for those clients. Like, we're not going to do that for every single client and review all those tax returns because we just don't have the bandwidth to do that yet. We're going to be really cautious. And now, sometimes we may bleed over into certain levels of clients because it's great practice. And she is passionate, if you haven't figured that out yet, about tax. So if it's a good learning opportunity for her, she wants to do it, and we have the time for her to do it, we have no issues with it. But we're really clear about how we kind of tier that. And then just that quick text is in our CRM. The observation report is in the Holistiplan system. And we're going to download that and send the observation report with this email to the individual clients.
Yeah. And one more thing too, to add to Jennifer's note about if you've reached out to get the tax return a few times and you haven't gotten it back. One thing that we've done in the past is we'll send a client a video and requesting certain information. And that typically solicits any kind of involvement there. So send them a video, shoot them a quick text that you send them an email, or send them an email, and just change your communication style. Sometimes that really helps.
Yeah, before we talk about compliance, because I know you guys will ask when she just said that. We use BombBomb for our videos. We do not send advice in those videos, but we can absolutely say, hey, it's great to see you. And then a lot of times right now, we do not have it set for our emails to be monitored. So we cannot send work-related emails via text. But what we can do is send them a note that said, hey, I sent you an email. Please take a look at it. So when we're talking about text and we're talking about videos, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another great example of evolution. We're calling it the Holistiplan Insurance and Risk Management Tool. Some of you may know this as the PNC tool. Some of you have maybe never seen this ever. I give Allison all the kudos. She brought this to my attention and said, hey, like, we're not utilizing this, should we? And I said, I don't know. What do you think? And so this is something that great example of just starting slow as Holistiplan builds out different features. And this is an example of one. Then we want to see how we can leverage this. Very transparent. Reviewing insurance was done hit or miss. It's done hit or miss throughout the company. And even with our team, we were doing this hit or miss. We just didn't have the great systems outside of me. I wouldn't have said until recently that Allison would have had the knowledge to go in and do this. But now by utilizing Holistiplan, and because she's a CFP, she can really start to understand, like, what is she looking for on an insurance policy. But Holistiplan makes this so easy. And we will try this. We will take a few of our early adopters. We almost always start with our personal information. I know my own stuff, so it's really easy to be like, oh, that's right, that's wrong. Oh, okay, I see. I need to be looking at things. So this is a really great area. If you have not investigated it and you are doing insurance work or you are considering it, highly, highly recommend that you dig into this.
Yeah. So like we mentioned, we like to start small, kind of roll it out with a subset of clients. And so we felt like this was a great place to start with our onboarding clients. So clients that have kind of just signed an agreement with us and we're starting to onboard them to become a client. We do topical meetings with those specific clients. So maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour. So we've slotted this in our insurance section. CapSouth as a company is really working to build out our client service calendar. Like we've mentioned, this is just our tax calendar. So we're trying to build out all of our processes, a service calendar around that. And so we see this really being slotted in the insurance section. We're trying to focus on that being in the summer. I see it being something similar to like the tax return review process that we have, where I will create an Excel spreadsheet, list out the amount of times that we've reached out to the client. And then once we've received that, we may highlight it and no longer reach out. We could use constant contact as a batch email and send that out to all of our clients requesting their property and casualty documents. Again, it's really just been used with our onboarding process, but so far we've got great feedback. pretty much every client that we've onboarded has reached out asking for broker information because they really want to shop their insurance policy. As you can see, a few tidbits about this. So it's a kind of similar to the tax report where you're uploading documents and it's giving you information. But with the tax report, it gives you kind of all your information at once. Whereas this one, this property and casualty or the insurance and risk management tool, you're having to go in and kind of add a few, just very few things. Items such as like last date shopped. When was the last time your client looked at the property and casualty documents? When was the last time they shopped around with different insurance carriers? They can add, or we need to add replacement value for their home or maybe their personal property limit. So there's just a few questions where Holistiplan cannot kind of put together. There's no way they can put together that information. It's really client specific. So, and then you can see too, the tax report will give you kind of observations at the bottom, all the different suggestions maybe you can implement or a strategy you can implement with a client. For the property and casualty, or excuse me, insurance and risk management tool, it will show you some key call outs. So for example, you can see on this report, maybe the client doesn't have a mold and fungus limit on their policy. So it will give you the key call outs and it gives you hazard signs or kind of caution signs or green signs, letting you know that everything's kind of in place here.
Yeah. One of the best things that you can easily target right now is rebuilding cost and replacement cost. As prices of homes have skyrocketed, I don't know how many of our clients have actually gone back in and understood where their insurance is. I would love it if clients just naturally thought of it, or we had a built-in process before this tool to be able to offer this service. I will say that in the future, I would say that this is going to be for all level of clients as part of our insurance risk analysis, because it's that easy, that scalable. And then just like our work on the tax returns, we would scale what we would do above and beyond that. So certain level of clients may just get the report. Others, we may have a meeting to really do key call outs and create some homework for them. It, depending on where we are and what our bandwidth is at the time, allows us to decide how much hands-on we can do, but we can arm clients with so much knowledge very quickly. And one of the things I look for when we're scaling is, how do I provide scalable value without creating a tremendous amount of work for the team? It's easy for me to have an idea and ask them to go do it, but we only have a limited amount of time, and we're not at the point where we want to grow our organization a tremendous amount with our people right now. We believe we have capacity. One day we'll measure capacity and be able to add more people so that we can serve more families. But building the process in and making sure that scaling efficiently, effectively, value for the clients is critically important to us.
Yep. And just for those who have not seen this tool, so this is your homeowner's policy, your auto insurance policy, and your umbrella policies. So it's all three. If you don't have an umbrella policy, that's completely fine. You don't have to upload it. Sorry, we should have started out by saying that, but just wanted
An umbrella is something like, I'm a huge believer that everybody needs an umbrella policy. I try not to give, blanket advice, but it's something we're always going to ask clients, like, do you have an umbrella policy? I am shocked by how many people don't have it, don't think about it, didn't even know what it was. So if you're asking clients for things, or as you have a prospect onboarding, you can build this into your process. And a couple of questions just on that to make sure we're really clear. The way that this differs from the tax is when you upload the tax return, because taxes can be, I hate to say this because I know somebody will say like, you're really wrong, but it can be more black and white. So what happens when you're uploading the tax return is that you're generating this amazing report, provided you have all the forms and all the information is accurate. You are still uploading the insurance documents in this tool, but you do then need to manually enter in some information. It's not hard. You can know exactly what you need from the client before you even ask for the documents. So you make sure that you do that all at one time. And then So it's a little different in that nature, but it's still a phenomenal use of being able to upload the insurance documents and getting a great report.
Mhm.
So fall and winter for us start to blur together. You can think of fall as like year-end tax planning opportunities. When I say it starts to blur together, it's because we kind of start trying to wrap up this year, but then we start planning for the next year as well in like end of November, December, fall, winter. That's why it runs together for us. This is just absolutely a repeat of what we did in the spring. We have a fair amount of clients that are going to file extensions. We know who they are, so we're not emailing them in March. We just tend to touch base. Are you a filing extension? Great. Okay, we'll reach out. So we repeat this exact same process. It's not a different letter. None of that nature. So the timelines you see here aren't going to be representative of fall. It's just literally the same process, just a different time frame. We talked in the beginning about our roadmap. By the time we get to summer and we're getting the tax return for the past year, that's our good gut check of like where we finished, what we thought the year was going to be. We're building what we call base scenarios. But the year-end scenario analysis work for us, we, airing all of our dirty laundry, we used to wait to the very last minute as a company. I'm sure some of you have been in that place and you're frantically trying to do all of this work. Schwab is our custodian. They now, I wouldn't say they make it easier, but they tell us directly like when we have to have certain things done. That gave us the air cover we needed with clients to say we have to have these decisions made. We have to be able to do it by this specific time. But because we created the roadmap, we've trued it up, tweaked it in the summer, we're not starting from scratch when we get to this point. And so now we're probably starting this process in September. It may not be a meeting with a client yet. It just may mean Allison and I are getting on the same page. And then if we need to meet with a client, we will. But this is saving us so much time and energy. And we are getting more work done well before Thanksgiving. People can breathe around the holidays, including clients, employees. And we feel like this has been just really well received by backing up some of this tax work. And the only reason we're really able to do it is because we've started the year planning in advance. It doesn't mean that there's not a one-off case. You guys know that there's always exceptions to the rules, but most of the work has already been kind of done throughout the long term.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add in there too, with Holistiplan scenario analysis, it's absolutely my favorite tool with Holistiplan. So you're able to really go in and look and see what is the estimated tax liability. So how much is the client going to owe, and maybe a federal tax amount they'll owe, or a state tax amount they'll owe, or a refund. And so for us, for clients who maybe had, let's say, restricted stock units or a larger bonus, we're able to go in and true up that end of year kind of Holistiplan scenario analysis work, maybe around like October, fall timeframe. And then they've got until they file their taxes the next year to really plan for that larger tax bill. So other people, if they're not using scenario analysis, the clients may not be expecting kind of that larger tax bill. So it really helps clients with cash flow planning in the beginning.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to the planning versus advice. So if we saw in the beginning of the year that a client may get a large tax return, we're sending them to the CPA to talk about it. We'll give them the strategies they should be considering. If they're doing their own taxes, we're not going to tell them what to do. We'll give them things to consider. I would say clients are only getting surprised at the end of the year just because maybe they got a bonus that they weren't expecting or something changed and they forgot to tell us about it. I would love if all of our clients told us everything as soon as it happened. But it's a lot of times when we're doing this work, they're like, oh, we didn't tell you this. And we love that because it creates the reasoning to keep us in the loop more. And so sometimes we just stumble into those situations.
Yep. And just kind of our last tool here that I also love, it's the milestone report tool. And so what it does is it shows you there's 36 different age milestones. So once a client hits a certain age, it's going to notify you. And so it's ranging from ages 12 to 75. We're not adding kids of clients into Holistiplan. That's just to show you kind of the age difference. But these reminders can include things like maybe the client is about to turn 50, they have their catch-up contributions, or they're about to be eligible for Medicare. So what we're doing is our process has been every time we onboard a new client, we're adding a client as a household to Holistiplan. We may not even have their tax return yet, but we're still going to add them as a household. That way, once we run those milestone reports, we're doing that in October for the following year. We're making sure we're catching all those big milestones that come up. And then we're going to communicate that.
And for us, like prior to doing this, we were running like just a report out of our CRM that told us the age of the client, but you still had to know, which I know that a lot of you guys know these things off the top of your head. We're really trying to build like internal succession plans. We have a lot of people that have come from outside of the industry. So not everybody knows every single thing. Like they're not the advisor on that at client, but I couldn't tell you that I can remember everything off the top of my head either. So the way that we were doing things were running reports from CRMs about birthdays. We were running RMD reports. We had already planned in our planning software for QCDs, but this just gives a phenomenal report with things to consider. It's very easy. You can run it at any time of the year. We just choose to run it really kind of at the end of the year, going into the next year. We might run it twice. And this helps us again, as we kind of flip to that calendar and start in the winter, it's giving us the roadmap. What do we need to be doing? What are the conversations that we need to have? It is a phenomenal place. I know somebody asked me, like, I'm new to Holistiplan. Like, where should we start? Milestone report, upload the tax return, and get the observation report. If you only use Holistiplan this year because you're new and you do those things, you're going to be well into the races, and then you can slowly start peppering in some of these other things that you've seen today.
And then just our disclosures.
You know, compliance, everybody's favorite part. So thank you guys so much. You know, Allison and I will try to be readily available. You can find us both on LinkedIn. We'll send the slides and any information afterwards. So many people have poured into us. So if we can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to ask.
This was tremendous. Thank you so much, Jennifer and Allison. This was really, really great. I'm sure you could tell by the chat absolutely popping off. So many Q&As. I think almost 90% of them got answered. So we will we'll send out the recording as soon as this wraps, probably later today or tomorrow. We'll send out the recording, we'll send out the presentation, and then we'll also send out the Q&A. So any resources that we talked about will be included there. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, now is the time to put it into the chat or put it into the Q&A so that we can get them answered for that recap email. But thank you so much for, you know, sharing and making it approachable and just kind of teaching and talking through how you guys approached it in your own business. It was really, really insightful.
Thanks for having us. We're huge Holista fans. So again, guys, just remember, ask yourself what's safe to try and then start small. Don't feel like you've got to do it all at once.
Yep, the slide. We will send out the slide. We get so many questions about the slides. We will send out the slides. Yeah.
I saw one question about when do you reach out to clients regarding RMDs and QCDs. So really, I mean, January, the very beginning of January, one of the first days in January, we're pulling a report that shows us all of the clients' RMDs for the year, inherited, or if the client is RMD age. And so we're pulling that in January, and we're sending an email out to a client, calling them, whatever they prefer, and we're letting them know about the RMD that they're going to have that year. See, I think that was really it that I could see.
Yeah, lots of questions about the RMDs and so we're really, that's when the software starts to come together. I'm like typing away furiously and trying to like talk at the same time, but milestone report, and then we go into our planning software. So we have a million ways of clients taking their RMD based on what their personal strategy is, but you know, we're generally bouncing back and forth between our planning software and Holistiplan, getting an idea. We use our planning software more for the bigger picture, and then the year over year, like really fine tuning it. We're getting into Holistiplan and running those scenarios. So,
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
awesome.
With that, we could wrap it up. We'll give you 5 minutes extra back, and we'll see you in the next webinar. So thank you all very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye,
Take care,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.